Great. Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. A very warm welcome to all of you joining us today. Our topic of the day is the ethical use of AI in research. And this is brought to you by APHRC, the African Population and Health Research Center, in close association with the Afrique Research Support Hub, that's also based at APHRC, funded by the Wellcome Trust. This has been an ongoing monthly series and very much targeted to early career researchers. So we are glad that you could all join us. The focus really is to strengthen the research management skills of early career researchers across the spectrum. Before we dive in, some quick housekeeping rules. Please feel free to engage us with any questions you may have on our Q&A function. We will get to the questions much later towards the end of the webinar. And you can also engage us on our social media platforms at APHRC on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, now X, and Blue Sky, and keep the conversation ongoing there. Well, back to our topic of the day. AI has become an integral part of our lives. Over the last few years, we've seen much disruption and advancement in terms of AI capabilities. But we also see more concerns that have emerged around this area, which brings us to our topic of conversation today, where we'll be talking about, what are the ethical applications of AI in research, really? It's no longer a question of whether or not we can use AI, we should use AI, but rather how do we do it in a responsible way? And this brings me to our guests for the conversation today. We have two colleagues from the African Population and Health Research Center as well, who will be engaging us in this conversation. We have Dr. Frederick Murunga Wekesa. He's an associate research scientist at APHRC. His area of specialization is in child and adolescent mental health, and he's experienced in really all areas of research, from conceptualization to evaluation and publication. Really, there's no better person, to talk about how researchers can apply this to their work. I also have on camera Henry Owoko Odero. He's a monitoring and evaluation specialist at APHRC, and his work is at the intersection of policy research, data science, and evidence translation. He's very keen on policy ethics and digital governance, with a focus on how emerging technologies like AI, can enhance accountability, inclusion, and equity in research and public policy. Well, thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us. And perhaps to set the scene for this discussion and what's to come, I'd like to welcome Frederick to take us through a brief presentation so that we have some context before we move along with this conversation. Over to you, Fred. You're welcome. Yes, you're hosted, Fred.
Okay, and we are on presentation mode, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Great. Thank you, Maureen. Great to be here. This, as you said, rightfully, it's an area that we are currently seized with. It's a tool that has been made available through innovation and technology and just how things are moving. And it's something that we must, in fact, I dare say we must embrace and not necessarily, wish away or even ignore, because everything in innovation and technology is here to help us. So we want to discuss AI, which is a tool that is rapidly transforming how we work. And we will really, as the topic suggests, focus on how we harness the power for academic and professional writing. And we also don't forget that we have to navigate some of the ethical and responsibility aspects of this. So I aptly titled this short presentation, and I think the conversation that will follow later will be much more relevant. But let's look at how we can responsibly use AI both for manuscripts, that's not knowledge generation, knowledge publication, but also just for proposal writing, because in research we have to look for funds, and that involves presenting what science has done, what's the gap, and why we are looking for funds for that. So I'll make this hopefully shorter so that we can get into the conversation. We'll look at what the landscape looks like, and I'll not pretend to be an expert here. Every day there are new tools being churned out, so the landscape keeps changing. Even now as we speak, I'm sure there's perhaps a new app being launched somewhere for a different purpose and things like that. But let's look at how the landscape generally looks like. What are some of the benefits and opportunities we can impress, some of the ethical considerations, which perhaps the mainstay of this presentation, and some guidelines on how we can use them for manuscript writing and proposal writing, certainly based on my own experience and the experience of my own colleagues, as well as, what would be the key takeaways, when we choose as and when to use AI. So AI tools are broad-based. They can do many things. There are different tools for different purposes. Like I said, everyone is finding a solution or a gap to address, and they are generating these applications to solve sometimes very tailored needs that they may have, sometimes very specific needs that they may have. But by and large, there's a whole repertoire of applications out there that can solve different things. But the main four areas that especially scientists and research can utilize AI tools, the main 5 areas would be in idea generation. When you overcome your writer's block and you just want an assistant to help you with thinking, you could deploy an AI, and we will see what are the examples of some of these tools that can augment your work, in idea generation and brainstorming. I'm sure most of us have used AI tools for editing and proofreading. It's perhaps some of the most used ways, one of the most used ways in using AI applications. Sometimes it comes naturally. I'm sure many of you who are on Gmail keep seeing these suggestions on AI summary, to summarize what an email trail is all about. So all these apps are coming up to help us, perhaps to make our work easier. These apps out there for literature review assistance, with proper prompts, and I'm sure Henry will tell us how to go about, ethically using and responsibly using them for literature review. So not really deploying it like a robot to carry out the work and bring you the results, by actually working alongside AI applications for literature review. We also have apps for data analysis and visualizations, and perhaps graphic designers would best tell us what are some of those apps that they are using, all the way from Canvas all the way to Napkin AI, that now can interpret text and convert them to visuals and things like that. But more importantly, because grant and proposal writing are all about putting your ideas forward, we have apps that can help you with language, interpreting language from funding agencies. We have these long documents outside there that Welcome or whichever funder puts out, and with a lot of jargon, or you just don't want to read 100 page of a document, and you can have certain apps that are out there that can help you do that. So these are just some of the 5 key areas where you can deploy AI tools to help you to take the conversation forward, or to take the activity or the task forward. AI actually enhances your work. When used well, AI is not a cheat code. I remember when we started working with the data analysis software, there used to be generated what we call cheat codes that you could paste on your wall and look at the codes and duplicate that. But that's not what AI is all about. It's actually a force multiplier. Look at it this way. You are combining forces with your intellect, with your thinking together with AI. So look at that combination, that collaboration as a force multiplier. AI allows you to focus on your mental energy on what humans do best, which is critical problem solving, or what we call deep critical thinking and analysis, and then let AI do the manual work. So basically for literature review, for example, you think about the research question, you think about the prompts, and you deploy AI to gather the work that has used the similar thinking that you have, so that you have all the material together, right? Not that the AI will be thinking for you. So if you forget anything on this slide, just know that AI as a tool is a force multiplier, a good companion, and a good assistant to help you actually achieve much more than you would have achieved if you did things manually. But despite all that, ladies and gentlemen, AI, and just like today we were having conversation about, the ethical, responsible AI development, ethical AI usage. And we can agree that even as we sit right here, there are a lot of improvements in the current tools, because we are not yet there. I don't think there's a tool we can say is completed, like it is now optimized. No, and we'll have this conversation after this. So every other time there's a new improvement, just like you download your apps on Google Store, and every day there's an improvement, there's an update on that. Same thing's happening to the versions of the AI tool that we have. So we need to understand that this is an area that is evolving, and therefore AI tools hallucinate, and they have a lot of inaccuracies, and there's a lot of effort to try and improve and address these inaccuracies. And AI has the potential to promote plagiarism and affect originality. Sometimes it may reproduce text without citation. There are issues around data privacy and security, especially when you input sensitive and published or proprietary data risks, and then they can be exposed. Look at it this way: when you have data that you have collected through household research, and has personal identifiers, and you put them on AI, because you're training an AI tool using input data, there's actually a higher chance that you can expose individuals and put them at risk. But then we'll have this conversation later as well. Issues around ownership and accountability. Who is really responsible for the final content? You are king, and you can never cede your autonomy to the AI application. So again, at the core of it is that you still run the show, and AI is an assistant, is a force multiplier, is a companion that helps you get ahead of the rest. There's also issues around bias and application, and we'll have this conversation. Current training of data tools, data applications, uses data from other settings, and if you want to deploy it in your own setting, there's a higher chance that it can actually perpetuate stereotypes, because data used is not local but external to the setting that you're using. And there's also a bit of loss of intellectual contribution, and I think this is the biggest fear that universities have, that over-reliance of AI tools undermines your own scholarly development. But what we are here to say today is that that should not really be the worry. In fact, academic institutions, research institutions should be actually looking at AI tools as force multipliers, as companions that can enhance the work that we are doing, can help us do the manual work as we do the critical deep thinking that researchers and scientists are supposed to do. So in short, what I'm trying to say, this is the most critical part. You should know that AI can be confidently wrong, like the way someone can confidently put up a lie. That's what AI can do, because it's all about scoring and putting together information based on how it's been trained. AI doesn't know anything. It also just predicts text, and Henry is the expert here on how AI works, and most of you perhaps are. And therefore, when you're submitting a grant with a fake citation because AI invented it for you, that will be catastrophic to you, not to the AI. So that was something that we should keep in mind. Some of the pillars for responsible AI use include issues around transparency and disclosure. Always disclose AI use, and we'll see how you can acknowledge that you used AI. Most programs and most tasks and most assignments appreciate that generative AI can actually be used. Assistants for grammar and edits can also be used. You just never should allow yourself to cede your responsibility to critically think to AI. You should provide human oversight and accountability, verify everything that comes out of AI. That follows into critical verification, and always be sure that privacy and security need to be upheld. Never input personal data in training AI applications out there. Even if you're driving a query, it's very responsible to input specific personal identifier data into AI applications. But more importantly, for science, for manuscript writing and proposal writing, intellectual integrity should be upheld. Use of AI as an aid for ideas, but not a source of ideas for you to claim as your own. And even when we're doing manual literature review, sometimes you have the temptation to copy a paragraph or a sentence the way it reads because it has never been said better. But we know that even when we're doing that, sometimes we have to put the inverted quotations and not claim that it's actually something you wrote. So the same rules about plagiarism and copy and pasting really applies to the use of outputs coming out of AI applications. Just to home in on what are the do's, again, what do you do? Use AI for brainstorming outlines, improving your grammar, like I said, as an editorial assistant, paraphrasing for clarity, and use it to provide clear, specific prompts and iteration for your work, and we'll have maybe examples of how this can be done. Always cross-verify output from your AI prompts or queries that you give to AI. Always disclose in acknowledgement that AI tool was used, and we'll shortly see how you can do that. And always maintain a full audit trail of your original work and where AI assistance has been requested. Sometimes because you keep writing long manuscript, long documents, we may end up mixing what was original hours with what came out from AI. That should never be encouraged because you may not know where to properly cite, properly write an attribution, and that may mix up a lot of thinking and ideas, which, of course, at the end of the day, may make it the accountability process very difficult. So be specific. Instead, for example, of writing a query, say, write an introduction for me, try a query like based on these 3 points, and you can list the 3 points, draft a 200-word introduction in a formal tone on mental health in Kenya, for example. Now that's a more clear query for an AI tool. I'm assuming you're using DeepSeek or ChatGPT, and that way you own the prompt that you gave it, and whatever output comes of it is basically your own thinking assisted by the AI tool. But still, you still have to check the output that comes, because I talked about hallucinations, I talked about some of the fake citations and things like that. What are some of the sticky don'ts? Never copy paste. I think we've talked about it. Never allow AI to write entire sections of your manuscript or introduction. Never input any of the following data: unpublished data, peer review comments, patient subject identifiers, and some of the classified information. Never use AI as a co-author, and don't assume that the output is always original. Again, AI knows nothing. It just predicts you've given it. Use AI for editing is generally acceptable. Using it to generate novel content you didn't create is not acceptable. So these are some of the boundaries that we have to ensure that we keep to. Treat AI like a powerful but unreliable intern. And I'm sorry for any interns in the room, but always treat AI like a powerful but unreliable intern. You give them tasks, but you have to check every single piece of work that they bring to you, so that you still end up taking responsibility and accountability. Ladies and gentlemen, we can look at an example of how using AI in manuscript writing. Acceptable use is polishing the language, suggesting alternative words, and creating for first draft outline and formatting references. How you cannot use it is generating the interpretation of your results. You can't drop tables of your analysis in AI tool and say, give me an interpretation, because it doesn't understand the context, does not understand plausibility and lack of plausibility. You do not use AI to write literature review without you synthesizing the sources, never invent citations, and never submit without disclosing use. Manuscript is one of the core pieces of your intellectual output contribution, and therefore AI should only touch the packaging and not the product. I don't think you can say that better. The packaging is different from the product, and never allow AI to touch the product, but you can always work on the packaging to make it sweeter, to make it better. But what is in the packaging is your own personal thinking. In terms of grant proposal, again, you can use AI to tailor the language to align with the funder's keywords. RFPs or request proposals come with different keywords and they ask you to respond in a certain way. Use AI to help you to look at what you've written and whether it aligns with the remit of the request for proposal. You can also use AI to check for compliance. Is your proposal aligning with what the funder wants? To proofread for typos like Grammarly and brainstorming potential project risk and mitigation strategies. But never use it to draft novel technical approaches or writing the biography or generating, what they call the boilerplate text without customizing it to the RFP. Again, proposal about you selling your ideas and your team's expertise. AI can help you present that case, but it can never help you come up with those cases. I hope that is clear now. With all this, therefore, happening, what is therefore the way forward? How do we stay informed? And I think I mentioned this at the beginning. AI and the AI field is a rapidly evolving field. And if you want to stay ahead, you have to stay updated. You need to be clear on the journal and funder policies are changing constantly, for example, and you always have to change your guidelines. You need to discuss with your institution, for example, what are the recommendations on AI usage, which ones are the ones recommended. And if you're in doubt, always disclose, but remember that your critical thinking, creativity, and expertise will remain irreplaceable. The rules today might be different in 6 months, so make it a habit to always check the instruction to others or proposal guidance on how you can use AI tools going forward. Don't get caught on the offside. How do you acknowledge use of AI, ladies and gentlemen? I've given examples here, and one example could be I acknowledge the use of Copilot. We all know Copilot by Microsoft. You can give the link there to summarize my initial notes and to brief my final draft. Increasingly, this will be required if you have used some of these AI tools, and the other examples are also written there. And therefore, ladies and gentlemen, as we finalize this conversation and go into the actual discussion, what are some of the key takeaways on how we can responsibly and ethically use AI in manuscript writing and proposal writing? Always know that AI is a powerful assistant and not an author. AI offers us an incredible opportunity to elevate our work and efficiency. Again, look at the analogy of the intern. Look at the analogy of AI as a force multiplier, a collaborator. So it gives an opportunity to really elevate our work. By using AI responsibly, ethically, and transparently, we can harness its power while upholding the fundamental values of scholarship and integrity, which is what we are called to do. So always make sure that you're 100% accountable for the content you produce. You verify. You can never say that better. Protect sensitive data. Ensure that you're transparent through disclosure, and use AI to enhance your voice, not to replace it. In other words, embrace the tool, but champion the intellect. Don't lose out on the intellect. In the final slide here, ladies and gentlemen, I'm providing some of the examples. And again, there could be better examples than what I'm listing here. Some of you are already working with others. But those that I've found useful in my own work are things like ChatGPT. There's a free version which hallucinates more than the subscribed version. And the things like DeepSeek which are coming up to compete with ChatGPT. We have things like Co-Writer AI that you can use. For assistance, Reader Scholar PDF Reader is there. Nowadays, you open a PDF document on the internet, and it asks you whether you want a summary of the same. You can have editors like Grammarly, AutoCrit, Literature Review Synthesis. You can use people like Research Rabbit and Cite area. But my favorite, and I think we'll have this conversation later, currently for synthesis is Google Notebook LM. I just get blown away by the opportunity that Google Notebook LM provides. There are links here, and I think this will be shared later on some of the places you can go. And I picked Georgetown University and Oklahoma, not because I have anything about them, but I just think that they have gone ahead to provide their students and their faculty on some of the AI tools that can be used for research and academic writing, so that they can be, again, like I said, a proper assistant and something to improve their performance. I'll stop there, Maureen, and I hope this has set the stage for the conversations we can have.
Thank you very much, Fred. That was wonderful, really. If nothing else, I think we can wrap up the conversation at this point and just share this, slides. to everyone asking about where they can get this presentation, please be assured that one, we will share these slides with you, and two, this recording will also be available on our YouTube channel at the APHRC. That's the handle on YouTube. Just to come back to you, Frederick and Henry, I know you mentioned Google Notes LM as your favorite tool. Could you touch a little bit on what exactly is it capable of doing, and how have you found it useful as a researcher in your day-to-day?
Yeah, so I mean, again, so I have a few that I use for different purposes. You just like different tools that are available for our use. There are tools we use to help the writer's block, like I said. Perplexity is one of those. When it comes to writing, I prefer writing my own stuff, but then get an assistant to help me look at what I've written. Grammarly is a good editorial support, but something that is a whole package that helps me summarize ideas that I may not see in documents at Google Notebook LM. And therefore, what I do is that if I have source documents, like I have 4 proposals to review, for example, I would upload this on Google Notebook LM, and using queries, just ask it to summarize what is common and what is different in the 4 proposals. Or let's just say 4 documents. It could be any document. And Google Notebook LM will actually give me an output in so many ways. It's amazing. Can give me a summarized version in text. You can tell me, do you want audio? Do you want me to read it to you instead? I could say yes. And it could give me a visual map of really just how the different documents look. And it can actually eventually develop, linkages to other materials from a web scrolling that I may not have known. So give me other materials that I haven't come across, just by checking on the internet. Say, you may also want to see this, just like happens with journal databases, right? Where when you click to one paper, it tells you you may also be interested in this. So, I mean, it's quite a powerful document. What do I use it for? Again, to draw summaries on big documents I'm reading, create visual maps, mental maps on what the document is all about, so in a visual way. And when I want to actually create a short video out of it to just understand what it's all about, I really would recommend for people who are doing synthesis of documents to always look at Notebook LM. It's by Google, it's free, and I don't think you require a subscription for it.
Well, thank you, Fred. Coming to you, Henry. Before we do the deep dive, what's your go-to tool in your day-to-day?
Thanks so much, Maureen. Now, I'd like to talk to you about it in 2 different ways. That one, there are those tools that, first, there are those tools that are equivalent to ChatGPT. So the GPT at the end of ChatGPT literally means general purpose technology. And you can use it to do literally anything. Right? And so
Sorry, Henry, we are losing you. We are losing you a little bit.
Tools that are at the same level as and this one. Oh, sorry. Let me check my internet connection. How is it right now? Better?
It's fine. It's fine now. Thank you.
Yeah. And so there is the general purpose technologies equivalent to ChatGPT by OpenAI, and these are the likes of Grok. These are the likes of DeepSeek and so forth. But then there are other models that either they are small language models, and there are so many out there, or it's a tool under the hood. It's perhaps GPT, but then it's specialized for a certain purpose. And so for me, the ones that are specialized for very unique purposes, I think Elicit and Perplexity are very excellent so far. But then because I'm really big on ethics, there's one called, so first, if you are an early career researcher, very often you're told to take meeting notes and whatnot. Very tedious jobs. You can always get your assistant to help you do that. And there's WhisperX. And WhisperX is very, very interesting because it's very accurate in transcription. and more so in our African accent transcription. And so far, it's been very useful to me. There's because Fred is big on literature review and systematic reviews, I'm giving him this one so that he tries it. There is a Research Rabbit. Research Rabbit, really, it's for literature mapping. And so it gives you, it's very good for on scoping reviews. And then it exposes you to clusters that you'd otherwise are likely to miss. And so, and you can always, it's human in the loop kind of thing that you can always edit whatever it's giving you. And lastly, of course, very related to ethics is Microsoft Presidio. Now, Microsoft Presidio, it's specifically designed for anonymizing research evidence. This is personal identifiable information. And so if you have transcripts, it easily skims through and picks which one can identify a human, a natural person, and helps you in anonymizing that. I can go on, but let me stop there. There's one we are developing, definitely. I'll talk about it. It's called Policy Lens AI by APHRC, but I bet you get an opportunity to talk about it down the road. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you very much for that list. But I'll add one more for you both, since no one mentioned it. SciSpace. You should check out that one as well. I found it quite useful. But now coming back to you, Henry, and the landscape is overwhelming, as we've already seen. I mean, there are too many tools around, and for an early career researcher who's trying to figure out, okay, but where do I get started, right? There is the more widely known large language models, but then there are the very effective, very highly practical AI applications in research that are not quite known yet. Could you touch a little bit on what some of these applications are? And I know this also links to your policy AI lens work at APHRC.
Yeah, thanks so much, Maureen. I'll start with Policy Lens AI, and I'll touch on two others that we have developed at APHRC. And then I'll talk about the other ones that are out there. So Policy Lens AI generally is an AI tool. So we do research at different levels, but really one of the things that has been lacking is a trend line on how policies change. We can get policy documents from back in the day in the 80s, right? But then often we can easily design studies for longitudinal trends on human beings and on institutions and whatnot. But then for policy documents, not much. And even if when you choose to do that, it's very tedious. And so one of the things that Policy Lens AI comes on board to solve is that. But as it does that, it does many other things. It's technically a repository for policy documents across the world. And our intention is to have it situated at policy institutions such as parliaments and whatnot. You can write policy documents. These are policy briefs. You can write actual policy strategies and whatnot on Policy Lens AI. The reason I tell you to go on Policy Lens AI to do that is that as you do that, it gives you text suggestions, but text suggestions that are evidence-based, because in its training, we have fed it different policies and the results of those policies. And so when there was a policy and it failed in Rwanda, and we know context information on why this failed, then it has learned that. And so when it's suggesting for you, it's suggesting from a point of knowing. And so there are different other capabilities. We are hoping to have it public. It's open to test at the moment. I'll be happy to share the link with you guys to test it at the moment. We've not gone for beauty yet. We've gone for functionality. We will work on the beauty perhaps in the course of next year. For those of you who are in longitudinal quantitative research, APHRC through the Inspire network, this is the implementation network for sharing population research from research entities. This is a network for let me say HDSS, but any institution with longitudinal population cohort can definitely be part of it. And so we've developed what we call ARSH. And ARSH really uses an on-prem AI that, when you use GPT and you feed it information, it's going to a server somewhere in the world. right? But for ARSH, it's on-prem. We've downloaded the models, and they're running locally within servers. And so if you are operating in Kenya or anywhere in Africa and you're worried that information that I'll be sharing here will be leaving the continent automatically, so worry not. ARSH is an on-prem on-prem AI system that helps tease out information from longitudinal data. It helps in analysis. It helps in showing trends and whatnot. And we're also happy to, as we roll that by the end of the year, we'll be happy to share. Right now, we've specifically included only institutions that are part of the Inspire network, but we are happy to have it open down the road. Coming soon is Faraja MH. Faraja Mental Health is an AI system for screening for mental health. And really, it has different modes where it assists the doctor. But also there is the mode where it just picks conversations and then diagnoses based on the conversations. Now, if you're a researcher working in mental health, this is something that you should definitely take a look at. But enough of APHRC and everything that we are doing at APHRC. I think I'd already mentioned Elicity and Perplexity. Elicity is really excellent in doing literature review. The secret really in Elicity and any other tool that that we'll talk about with regards to research is prompt engineering. That for sure, garbage in, garbage out. If you don't prompt properly, you don't get very good results. And so you have to be very, very clear in the research question that you're trying to ask. Elicit will specifically help you and give you DOIs and links to all accessible papers online, but only from academic sources. And so, it also generates summaries of what these papers are about. And so really, like Fred was saying, that this is a very good research assistant. I like to think they're reliable, but always check their work so that whatever output that they give you, you also kind of conversant with them. If you don't want your sources to be specifically from academic sources, then you can jump to Perplexity. Perplexity does kind of similar things that Elicity does, but from news articles, from gray literature, and from Google in general. I talked about Research Rabbit. I had also spoken about Whispers X. There's another, it's called Open Refine. This is for data cleaning. So if you're a statistician or a data person, Open Refine is very excellent. It helps in data cleaning, and the good thing with Open Refine is that it's really reproducible. That whatever you do, it's like using a do file on Stata. And so you can always trace your steps and say, this is what I did here and here. So I'd like to stop there. Yeah, but I bet if I remember others, I'll bring them up as we go on. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Henry. And for all the tools that you're sharing, please put them on chat, but you'll also make this available. We'll update the slides and make this available as well. And happy for you to use the platform to test what you're building and get some real-time feedback on that as well. Coming back to you, Fred, and you touched a little bit on this. Let's talk about attribution when AI is used in scientific research. I know you touched a little bit on this, but we can go a bit more in depth. When and how should this be acknowledged? As it is right now, we're seeing you can use AI literally from brainstorming for your concept note all the way to the writing, including to the data analysis. Now we're talking about acknowledging this in your methodology section, all the way to even the editing and whatnot. So really, it's doing quite a bit of heavy lifting at the risk of what some people, argue that AI might be putting us at a risk of cognitive deficit, right? So when and how should this be done, and where do we draw the line here?
Yeah, I think I would give an analogy of a project or a paper manuscript writing. When do you make the decision to put someone in the acknowledgement section, and when do you list them as a co-author? we have guidelines around that, right? So someone did a lot of heavy lifting, as you put it. They wrote the introduction, they participated in the analysis. Surely you can't relegate them to the acknowledgement section, say, oh, I want to thank so and so. No, they have gained the right to be a co-author, right, on a manuscript. Now let's come back to the use of AI. If you're going to use AI to review what you've written, in terms of an editorial or grammar assistant, I really don't think, and for that kind of aspects, there is really no need to acknowledge use of AI. You could, but that's an overreach for me. But if you had to present prompts to Perplexity, as Henry says, or Licit AI for that matter, to help you with the thinking, to help you with the structuring a conceptual framework. If you use Napkin AI to develop a theory of change that you actually use within your document, it only makes sense that you either leave something on as a, what do you call that, below the figure and say degenerated with the help of this, or you actually have that statement that I showed earlier, that the theory of change framework was then developed with the help of this and this, right? So again, this is just where we are supposed to be reasonable. We shouldn't overplay it. Just like, again, I've said, when it comes to writing a manuscript, don't overplay these things, because, again, it may take away the credibility of the work that you do. And yet you only use it for purposes that you could have asked someone else to just read it for you and give you feedback. But again, I don't think there has to get to a point where we say that AI did all the work and you sat back, because that really should never be the case. Just like it's not right for you to give a consultant to do your work, get it and put your name to it and claim that you're the one who did it. And I know these are some of the conversations that we have. People have got their master's degrees by paying someone else to do it for them, submit, and claim to be their own work. It's the same reason why I'm a big, I don't like the whole concept of academic writing and stuff like that, because I think it's evil. When you outsource the effort for thinking, you take it back, you submit as your own. Again, I may be digressing to uncomfortable conversation, but it's actually the same ethical and principle values that determine how we live our lives, really. So back to the AI conversation. When you have used it substantially to curate your thinking, to structure your sections of a manuscript or proposal, you should acknowledge it. But when you just use it to rephrase some of the statements that Grammarly AI, I don't even think Grammarly AI demands that you pay homage to its use. But you'll see some of this ChatGPT, like when you do something ChatGPT, at the end there it asks you, do you want to acknowledge ChatGPT, right, Henry? Correct me if I'm wrong. But I think sometimes when you get an output from ChatGPT, it even asks you whether you want to acknowledge it, because it's both a commercial benefit for ChatGPT, but also just you being ethical in the way you do your work. So we shouldn't, Maureen, to answer your question, we shouldn't get to the point where we outsource the thinking, the critical thinking, to ChatGPT, and therefore that product is not ours. But when we use it substantially, yes, it's okay to acknowledge it, either in the acknowledgement section, or if there's a figure out of it, to just put a rider below it that this figure was developed by the help of this and this application. But Henry is the expert here when it comes to these conversations on AI.
Thank you for those reflections, Fred. I'm happy for Henry to weigh in on this, especially as it relates to data. Now, we know all these large language models are thriving on, these publicly available huge amounts of data, right? That's how we train these models. But Henry, there are data security and privacy concerns when it comes to search. I mean, these platforms need your data for training and to give you better outputs in the long run, right? But what should researchers look out for? What kind of data, is not right to avail on such platforms?
Yeah, thanks, Maureen. Now, I'm gonna start one step behind from where Fred left it. And really, if you think about it, even right now, if you use Stata or Python in doing data analysis in your methods section, you are going to say, we use Stata version this, and okay, Stata and Python and whatnot. You don't need to mention the scope. But then I think, and I have to put a disclaimer here that when we talk about what is right in policy, this is an evolving thing, that policy and regulations always play catch up with technology and any field. So technology and AI will always be one step ahead from the regulation, right? And so where the regulations are right now is that at least, so back in the day, I think a year or two ago, there are journals that wanted to say you can cite ChatGPT as a third author. And I suspect maybe down the road we might come back to that, because agents are becoming, so there are different types of AIs. And right now there's the conversation around agents, and agents really are AI systems that can complete a task by themselves without a human being in the loop. And so there are conversations around having agents, but then we will get there. But if you look at the ICMJE criteria, they say that authors need substantial intellectual contribution. And they have to make final approval and accountability. And I'm reading this straight from their website. And so this really means that tools cannot consent or accept accountability. Right? And so really, yeah. And so for me, really, the question of whether AI systems can be authors is to this point, not yet. Now, that is a conversation that can be revised down the road when agents, of course, we can see that now AI is taking the direction of agents, and agents are going to be more independent. And that's a conversation that institutions will have to revisit. But as it stands, so for me, no point, include AI as tools, the same way you would reference the use of Stata and whatnot. Now, I have to go back to the question on data safety. I think that's where you are heading, Maureen. That when you are using ChatGPT, a general purpose technology, it can do analysis for you. And I have a data set from a certain village in Malawi, and I upload that data set on ChatGPT. The truth, like I'd already mentioned, is that this is going to a server anywhere. And it's only up to the terms and conditions that they issued you for them to, now what really matters after you've done that are the terms and conditions that they had issued you when you started using their system. And so in this case, I think there are alternatives. I already spoke about on-prem AI systems. That is like the ARSH that APHRC is developing. And so on-prem really is that the model, the neural networks that have been developed to operate as AI are now downloaded and are running on a server somewhere, a server that you have full control of. And so this means then, really, if it's such an AI system and you have uploaded your data, you know where your data ends up in, right? But then if you are using GPT or you're using DeepSeek, you are literally willingly handing over that data. You have to then take time and look at their terms and conditions. And there are things that, and I have to mention here, perhaps if you've been idle and taken time, I know most of us don't look at the terms and conditions for even basic apps. But if you've taken time to look at them and you've seen something like, we use your input to train our models, but then they do not give you any data protection, like any line that covers data protection and safety, then they're open to do with it as they please. They do not disclose their retention policy. So when they're using your data to train their models, okay, how long are they going to retain it? That's a red flag. In no point in their terms and conditions have they given you an assurance of security. And this can be in the form of ISO 27001, or I think there's the other SOC 2. They have not given you any assurance of security. That's another red flag. In Kenya right now, the Data Protection Act has a clause on cross-border data transfer, and you have to give safeguards. And so generally, if you work for Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, and you've done a census, and you upload that census on ChatGPT or Grok or whichever you like, you have literally contravened a section of the Kenya Data Protection Act. And you can be found liable, because essentially the servers sit out of Kenya and you've literally shared the data out of there. And there are two things here also, that the data you've shared perhaps is already anonymized, and so no problem. Or perhaps it already has names and GPS coordinates and every other thing, and the health status of individuals and whatnot, and that makes it worse, because now it's health data and it's been shared out there. I hope I have not digressed yet, Maureen, but I'd like to stop there. But I bet that's quite a few things to look at. Yeah.
And maybe just I just wanted to link to that. The reason why I shared like those two vetted pages is because, as Henry said, our developed country partners have stringent data protection, guidelines. And therefore, for a university like Oklahoma State or the other one, Georgetown, that I shared, for them to put out suggestions on some of what they consider safe and vetted, perhaps more improved research AI tools, you can see some kind of effort has gone into it to curate and to make available for the staff and students some of those applications that they can use without necessarily falling into the trap of, data exposure or using applications that are not up to scratch. And Henry, I'm sure you can argue that because development is ongoing, and just like vehicles or clothes or any other product out there, we have high quality development application that has put in enough resources to develop something that is very robust. And then we have low quality development, and all these are competing outside there in the market. And you really have to be careful beyond the terms and conditions and beyond all those things that point to the robustness of an app. You really have to be very careful on how you select which app you use for what. And therefore, maybe I should go back to some of the recommendations I made on some of the app I mentioned is really not an endorsement for these applications, because like you, I do not know how robust they are, but I found them useful for my work. But they could well be that some people question, their safety. They question, how ethical they are and things like that. So it's a field that is moving at lightning speed, and we need to consult with experts, and especially those people who are good data governance like Henry, and people who are developing AI applications. And we need to read the fine print, or at least have someone read the fine print for us and say, okay, if you are working with a data analysis AI application, then you are better working with A and not B because of these terms and conditions attached to it.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that addition, Fred. And now, speaking of keeping up, I'm curious, as a research scientist yourself, and in the spirit of staying ahead of the game, what skills do you think, early career researchers right now, need to cultivate in this environment, to be competitive for the current and future markets?
Is it in relation to still AI use and in research? Okay.
Yeah.
No, I think I don't know how many people are Kenyans on this call, but in Kenya, I think we use words like Janja. I think you need to be savvy. You need to be savvy and smart, street smart in this market, really. Even as researchers, I think those who read and ask questions and are a bit curious and do their homework around what is good and what is not bad will stay ahead. So, for example, the conversation around to use or not to use AI, I think we should keep it behind us right now. And I think you started with that, Maureen. It's no longer whether we should use, it's just about how we optimize using AI in our work. So arguing that, oh, AI is not good, AI is good, or AI is going to make us intellectually bankrupt, I think is no longer the conversation. Now it's about finding an AI tool that optimizes your performance. So whether you are a writer and you want to write, it's coming up with a set or a suite of applications that optimize your work. And I think it's what someone may, I don't know that I touched on it earlier. They are free and then they are paid subscription-based applications. Now remember that there's a reason why they can release two things. One is free. Of course, they have not optimized your utility from it, right? Because that's why it's free for anyone. And it's actually, Henry, it's usually to collect data for training. And then they make the optimized one for subscription, the one that has got all the features, any upgrades are quickly made on the subscribed version. So if you want to get ahead and want to identify the correct applications, you also should be willing to subscribe, because by so doing, you actually have access to more robust applications, even in the same family of application, also more curated. And I think Henry will also tell us that you can actually set some of these applications in the subscribed version. You can train them using your own data and the type of data that you work. So for example, the way I write, and if I get a Grammarly Pro, it learns the way I write, and it sort of like mimics the way I would want to write my topics. Granted, all of us have different ways of writing. And sometimes when you start feeling like AI is writing like you, it's not by chance. It's basically learned from the prompts give it every other time. So then therefore, if you have Grammarly Pro, for example, as of the subscribed version, it begins to learn the language that you use. For those of you who work with the polished version on Gmail, you'll see that when you ask Gmail to respond on your behalf based on the suggestion, it will eerily be similar to how you have been responding before, because it's been learning, how you like saying, or you may say, okay, so upload this for signing if it's coming from so and so. I actually saw it the other day when an email came from someone. The quickest response was upload it for signing, and you could see it because it's been learning that an email from this to me is all about sign this and that. So I mean, to make it, I think long and short of it, Maureen, is that we have to be inquisitive. We have to consult experts so that we are clear on which ones are more robust and more secure. And we should be willing to pay for the subscribed versions, because nothing is free. There's nothing like a free lunch. So we should know that the free versions are mostly collecting data for training, and the pro versions are mostly, to optimize your work because you're paying for it. And also we should just be keeping up with what is new, what has changed, learn a bit of the language used, just so that we can have these conversations with our peers. I'm in a workshop where we have people, experts in natural language processing development. Henry, your friends are here. And you can see that there are two people in the rooms. Those of us who don't really care much about AI, and we are floating a bit. And then there are those who speak these terms and jargon naturally. But what if we learned, and by so doing, learn something about how to deploy AI in our work? I think it will be a good thing. So be inquisitive, subscribe when you can. Mostly you should subscribe, and ask the experts to guide you on which direction to go and which tools to use for the right purpose.
As we wrap up this section and head to the Q&A segment, Fred, thank you for that. And Henry, you also touched a bit on some of the niche areas that can be explored here. I mean, you're talking about developing the policy AI lens. That's an innovation in our context in terms of what more we can do with AI, because I'm sure the West is not debating the applications of AI in the day-to-day use in the very basic manner. But we're seeing more advanced use, in terms of designing of health interventions and many other things. So coming to you, Henry, as we close this bit, what do you see as the future of AI in research? And in research here, it takes two dimensions, yeah? There's in the research processes, as we've been discussing, but then also in terms of how African researchers can leverage this in terms of what they generate and the kind of programs we are designing and our problem solving, yeah, within our context. Yeah, what do you see as the future?
Thanks, Maureen. for me, I went with the on-prem example first because none of these models is paying me for advertisement. But I have to agree with Fred that enterprise versions of any of these models are superior. Now, AI is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. It might change in different ways, in ways that we cannot imagine, but it is here to stay. I'll chip in a bit from the question that you had asked, Fred. I think some of the skills that are going to be more useful in this age is really it's what they call prompt engineering. That really the difference between two of us and the output that we get from any AI, any general purpose technology, especially the natural language processing, the one that generate text, is really the question that we've asked it. How have we phrased those questions? Have we used those words that really click real quick in their brains? And I'll give you an example. If I'm talking to Fred and I know he's done mental health research for a very long time, and I really want to reach out and get him to understand the point of view that I'm taking or whatever I'm trying to explain, I'd use terms and words and examples that are in the space that Fred is in. And so whatever model and whatever you're trying to use to do, really, there are those terms that help that model identify and say, okay, and it narrows down. Because now, if you look at the libraries behind these systems, there are some with, I don't know, 50,000, 90,000 and whatnot. It's sifting through all this information before it gives you a response. And the easier you make it for it to sift through the information and give you a response, the faster and the better the response. And so really for me, prompt engineering is one of the key skills for any future researcher. Two, like in all research and over the years, it's really whatever we do has to be reproducible. That whether I've been aided by ChatGPT in doing my statistical analysis, or whether I've been aided by no-code platform. Oh, that's another platform by APHRC. It's called no-code platform. Whichever I have used, there should be an audit trail of what I have done. Now, why do I say this? AI systems are stochastic in nature. Stochastic generally is that if I ask it to give me a description of what I do, it's going to give me a description of what I do. If I ask it again immediately, it's going to give me a description of what I do, but using very different words, right? And so that the way it changes its response, it might not change in meaning, but it changes in terms of the way the words are organized, which word comes after the other. That's what's called stochastic. That's what we mean when we say an AI systems are stochastic, right? And so understanding this, and one, this is a solution and kind of a problem. It's a solution because initially there was all that problem that you want to say something, but it was said with the same words in a different paper, and so you can't say it that way. And so AI is stochastic. You give it that, it gives you the same information but different words. And so, and then the second problem really is the ethics around it. Really, what I'm boiling down to, it's just understanding prompt engineering. That's one of the key skills. Two is on where AI is heading. I think right now there have been different directions that AI has taken. There are companies that really embraced AI real quick. I think the likes of Duolingo, the likes of what's Elon Musk's car company? Tesla and the likes of Tesla. They really strongly embraced the use of AI in their production and in their Duolingo in building the language courses, and Tesla in car production. But then something interesting has happened. Duolingo quality of courses has gone down, and now they've had to roll back. Tesla, they had to roll back in the use of the use of AI to make sure that they meet their quota. I bet that was sometime mid this year. And so this tells you one thing, and what they're learning really is that AI is good in structured tasks. But then tasks that need high discretion, that variables change all the time, then that's what we leave for humans. And so really, I think the future of AI, before I speak about agents, is that we're gonna have a model where it's human in the loop, that it's AI is really supporting, but then a human being is part of that process, whether it's checking the outputs or editing the outputs and prompting. And so there's always gonna be a human in the loop. But now with the emergence of agents, I think and it's really pretty hard to predict what the space is going to be like in the future. But I'd like to think that agents will become stronger, but then they'll become stronger in tasks that are structured. Whatever you've asked here today, Maureen, you realize in research, we've spoken more about systematic review, but not these other general research. Because if you were to put me and Elicity to do a systematic review today, Elicity will beat me hands down, right? But then if we are doing a certain evaluation, even if I'm prompting the AI, I have to keep tweaking the things that I'm asking. And then lastly, I think we're in the age, and Welcome is already funding AI evaluation, that we have to understand what's under the hood. We have to understand their performance, and this has to be recorded, right? And so whether it's for mental health, whether it's for policy analysis, whether it's for data analysis, this is already a domain that funders have already identified, and it's something that they are funding so that AI systems can be evaluated in terms of their efficacy, efficiency, and whatnot. So really, that's my 2 cents about what AI is going to look like in the near future.
Well, thank you, Henry, for that detailed response. Very briefly, right before we go on to the Q&A, we have quite a number of questions to get through before 4:30. What do you see as the future of AI in research?
I'm actually learning a lot from Henry. I work together, but every time he speaks, I learn so much. I'm the user. He, on the other side, is actually one of the developers and the evaluators of these programs. I like the fact that, and I think we should insist a lot on prompt engineering. Again, issues garbage in, garbage out in terms of data, but also in terms of getting the most out of AI applications. Prompt engineering will separate you and I. How I put together the query and refine it and improve it to eventually get a product out of it will depend on just how creative and clever I am on how to use an AI application. That's the first thing. And the second thing is just to, again, not be afraid to drop one for the other. Henry, you've seen that, and I think you talked about the example of Tesla. The time Tesla was impressing other ones, they started a fight with OpenAI. He knows what he was doing. Then he went to Grok, and then before we know it, he's doing XAI. What is all this about? Because you find different ways of deploying different tools to do different tasks and help you to do your work. The same thing with us. We should know, okay, we have been depending on ChatGPT, but maybe DeepSeek has found the better ways of improving the kind of product or the range in which, or the scope where it gets that. And I've seen a question, perhaps just in a way in leading to that. There are different tools for different purposes, and we should know which ones we deploy for what. Just like it is with tools in the natural sense of the word. You cannot use a panga to dig. And therefore, for AI applications, you should know what you need to help you think. You should know what you need to help you write. You should know what you need to just help you refine what you're writing. And you should know what you can use to help you prepare the package, the overall package for the product that you're developing. So for me, that's how the future looks. And it's changing. By the time we are done with this webinar in the last, I don't know how many minutes, perhaps 100 more applications, or as Henry calls them, agents, will be already in operation and maybe already garnered some kind of followership outside there.
Well, thank you, Fred. Straight on to our Q&A. There's a very interesting question here from Dr. Ahmed from Somalia. He asks, what is the single most, and this is to both you and Henry, what is the single most critical actionable step that researchers and institutions in our region can take today to practically embed ethical AI considerations into our research workflows, especially given our unique resource constraints or social-cultural contexts? And I'll link this to another question that was from Louisa, I think. And, hers was around how do we ensure that bias is eliminated in the data used in training these large language models? Over to you.
Henry, go ahead on the, especially on the issue of bias. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's an interesting one, and I'm happy that it's coming up. That one of the things to note is that AI gets better based on the data that it's used to train. And so if it's, I'll give a popular example of if it's an AI model used to detect skin cancer, and the data that's being fed on is white Caucasian or anywhere else, but then when it's screening a cancer or a skin cancer on a black skin, then it might not perform well. That is the truth, and that's the type of bias that comes on. Now, I think this is more to the discretion of those who are developing the systems, and of course, definitely they have the enterprises and whatnot. These are businesses, and they want the best output there, their products to be good. And so I'd like to think this is mostly a baggage to be carried by them as a business. Now, when we say data sharing, I've always said that data sharing is not necessarily a wrong thing. That data sharing with the right guardrails in place, then is in fact a good thing and allows any model that's being trained to be properly trained. I think I'll stop there and let Fred take the other.
Fred.
On the question around institutions, I mean, it's exactly what we should be doing right now. And there are many steps, really. First of all, appreciating that AI can be responsibly used in research. So appreciating that and that involves updating some of the policies that institutions have, right? Most of these are really administrative in a way, but starts by acknowledging that we cannot fight AI anymore. Especially in academia, I think it's a really big thing. And number two, really, is to work with your AI. Most universities, academic institutions have AI experts right now, and just really assigning them the responsibility of looking around and recommending best way of first bringing AI within the operations of the institution, whether it's on the administrative processes, effectively making marks and performance of students available, or the actual, conducting of research and academic exercises. You'll be surprised that right now, secondary school students in some of the private schools, in Kenya, are being allowed to use ChatGPT for their assignments, and not because teachers want to fight it, but because they know if they encourage use of technology and they teach young people on how to ethically and responsibly use that, they're actually making the best out of resources that are available. Very soon, we will not depend a lot more on hardware, or at least hard books, whatever. Now, and I think you said that if you needed to do literature review, and that was the consultancy you have been doing over these years, I am a literature review expert. I think from now on, you can start considering yourself out of work, because I really don't need to hire a literature review expert. It's a challenge. Sometimes interns and research assistants may start struggling with that aspect, because all of a sudden now we are deploying these tools for that. So institutions need to first appreciate that these are resources that they can use to optimize administrative processes, the research, and the publication itself, and then task their experts in AI to see best ways of adopting them and which are the most robust or the agents that they want to use. As Henry said, enterprise one require payment. should make resources available that they get enterprise. But I'm also a big proponent of local on-prem, as Henry says, on-premises in full, right, Henry? Locally developed, locally deployed, and the use of local data to train it. So on one side, while development continues, we can adopt what is enterprise and outside there that has been shown to work, but we should encourage our students in ICT and our experts in our universities to actually develop tailored and contextualized applications that we could actually use within our settings. Because the challenge we have and the biases we are getting with some of the outputs we get from AI is because it has been trained by data from elsewhere. So even on things like engineering, for example, the way we do civil engineering and mechanical engineering in Kenya may be based on some standard approaches, but there could be local aspects that you want to embed in how engineering is done locally. And therefore, if you were to get an AI app on engineering, there is local data that you can input. A good example, Henry, would be how Toyota for many years have been saying that they are making study vehicles for the local market. I mean, that involves some kind of data on how they form and foment certain parts of a vehicle so that when they develop for the Kenyan market, it can go to my village in Huisero without breaking one of those, steering racks or something. And yet it's not the same standard they use for a different place. So institutions really need to embrace this, task their experts to come up with recommendations, but more importantly, improve the infrastructure to accommodate the operationalization of these AI applications. Find those that work, develop those that will serve their purposes, and encourage innovation among students in this space so that eventually we have data that is local, used to train our applications, that they serve our purposes, but more importantly, we are contributing to this big space where we also need to be players going forward and not just observers or spectators.
Well, thank you, Fred. Those are some practical insights, at the institutional level for consideration.
Yeah.
To the next set of questions, I'll bring forward. So Peter Onjuru Mokaya asks whether we should worry about false AI detection in our manuscripts, and I've seen this come up quite a bit, the issue of false AI detection. So Henry, you could touch a bit on that, and Fred, you could touch a bit on, someone asked about the threat of data pollution in AI. I'm looking forward to know what that is all about. Over to you both.
Thank you. About false AI detection. This is an interesting one. I think I've seen at least 3 papers that have tried to compare AI detectors. I can't remember the exact names. And that was back in 2003. And their conclusion was that none of the AI detection tools that they had tested in their paper was accurate. Now, the other thing that you have to know is that when I think it's GPT, back in the years, I think 2018 or so, in Kenya, but I also know in Zimbabwe and many other African countries, there was this interesting job of online writing. And you will write scripts and you will answer questions and you will identify images on a screen. And really, this was GPT trying to train their AI models. And so how GPT originally started writing was more of how a Kenyan would write, more of how those people who were used to write the manuscripts that were used, the scripts that were used to train it, were writing. Eventually, it got trained on data from Google, but then somehow it had that bias, and so it would write the same way that we do. And so the chances of you writing and being told that this is AI written work are very high. At this point, I do not know. I do not really know on the accuracy or performance of the AI detection tools, but I think it's something I need to go back to so that I know where that conversation is. I think the last time we had a serious argument about it was back in 2003, and I had come to the conclusion that none of those detection tools were accurate. Take note that that was 2003. AI is jumping big steps at a time, and so possibility is that it might be getting more accurate. But then take note also that AI models are stochastic, that they change the way they write with every response. And so tracking that is equally difficult. Perhaps I'll take some time to look at what's been published out there in terms of this. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Henry. Fred, on data pollution in AI?
Again, I think that's jargon that is used to say that you have poor data, poor quality data that is used to train models. And I think Henry has caught up on this already. That I mean, the most robust AI models or agents are the ones that have used human-generated high-quality data. The performance of an AI agent is just as good as the data that has been used to generate it, right? I mean, to train it. So when AI generated data, remember that some AI generated data can actually also be used to generate some AI models. I mean, there are all type of people out there. Again, like I said, like in any market, there are different products, ranging from poor quality products to high quality products. There are developers outside there who know their job. I mean, big organizations have a lot of resources. They know where to get their data. They know how to, when they lack human-generated data, how they can make synthetic data that they can use to train models and simulate and things like that. But then there are also people who don't have so much data and they have little data, poor quality data, but they go ahead and use it to train some AI models. And what you get as a result of that, an agent that is poorly developed, that is using just any poor data, and the output really is bad, or the performance of that thing is bad out there. This exists and we have to look out for it. How do we do that? And that's why we have a lot of options, really. Working with our experts to understand which in a class, and I think Henry was putting it very well. Different agents for different purposes. So if it's about general purpose tools like ChatGPT that can do anything, then you need to ask yourself, which one do I use? Do I use ChatGPT? Do I use DeepSeek? What's the difference? Who is developing it? DeepSeek is from China. ChatGPT is from the US. Which data are they using? Some kind of just knowledgeable, informed decision making on which tool to use will be important. My argument again around subscribe vis-a-vis free offers. Again, there's nothing like a free lunch. So if people are giving you free service and at the same time they are offering something subscription, it's obvious that the subscribed version is more superior than the free version. And if you want to get the most out of these agents, then if you can always subscribe to them. Even Perplexity, Henry, has the premium version where you do that. The same thing with ChatGPT and everything like that. So really it's about data pollution exists because there are different people wanting to develop these materials, but they may not have the resources that can put them at par with big organizations like Microsoft or Google. The reason why I think Google, for example, has powerful agents out there in almost everything. Now, everything Google you open right now will give you suggestion based on AI. Why? Because Google has inadvertently just been collecting your data since time immemorial. It was the first Gmail account you opened. Everyone is searching on Google. I think Alphabet and Google have the biggest source of any data anyone would want to have. And so you can imagine just what they have at their disposal to do anything, including suggestions and everything. You are talking on your phone about something and you have an Android phone, and tomorrow you start seeing suggestions on your social media on that thing that you did not even type, that you just talked about. So it picked your voice, curated that, and you start seeing suggestions about Toyota RAV4. Maybe you wanted to buy a Toyota RAV4. You did not search it anywhere, but all of a sudden you actually have this thing coming up. So we have to watch out for this thing. There are poor quality applications out there. We have high quality, robust applications out there. If you can subscribe for it, subscribe for them. But more importantly, ask around, seek advice, and identify the right tool for the right task so that you can avoid falling in these pitfalls. Again, like I said, you have to take ownership of any output out of any agent that you use. So your reputation is more at risk than the tool that you use. And if you know that, then the onus is on yourself to invest in the more robust tools, just like you'd invest in things that are meant to make your life better, right?
Yeah. Very, very on point, friend. Thank you for that. And as we wrap up in the next 2 minutes, Abigail Kuthge has a very, pertinent question here. She asks, beyond programming and academic writing, how does AI in research align with the 4 principles of ethics? Which national legal framework and policy are you using in ethical review of your research? I hand it over to you as the researchers. Henry?
I'll take the first stab of it, and I was already panicking because I saw it, and you were saying in 2 minutes. So yeah, this is very, very key. Now, I'll take the ethical part. So in terms of autonomy, I think if you have a system that serves people, and this system is going to make decisions on these people, they need to know, right? That's the first principle, autonomy. Beneficence, really, beneficence, maleficence, really here, I think where we are at, there's a broad assumption that the models that we're trying to build are meant to do good. And in health, for instance, remember I mentioned Faraja. Faraja is a mental health screening AI tool. And so what we are doing right now, it's being developed in a lab environment. The approach we are taking is a random control trial, where we are going to use trained patients and whatnot. And so real patients will not interact with the platform until it's been validated and tested. And we are sure, we know for sure that it will not cause any harm. And I hope that takes beneficence and non-maleficence. And then the principle of justice. And I think we already touched on this, really having fair and equitable AI. And this really depends on access to the system, but also on the data that's being used. And so if you walk through an airport where it's AI systems that's detecting people's faces and whatnot, and then it doesn't detect you because of perhaps your forehead or certain physical features, this is not quite fair. But this is in fact a result of the data that it was trained on. Recently, in terms of policy and law, I think we recently did a review of the Malabo Convention. This is work that's going to be published perhaps early next year, because we are set to submit it. And we did a review of Malabo Convention and how well it covers AI. Unfortunately, it doesn't, because there are different angles to AI that has come up. What it does cover the basics. There's still a lot more that it could do in terms of comprehensiveness. We see that it has quite some clauses on accountability, but not broad enough, and it does not require countries to align on the accountability measures, which is a problem. And so these are some of the loose ends that need to be tied if you're thinking about Africa. Malabo Convention is the it's the African Union framework for data protection and cybersecurity, if I remember correctly. And so we've reviewed this, and we see, of course, there are a couple of loose ends. We had a conversation about a month ago at the Pan-African Parliament. That's the Parliament for AU in South Africa. And of course, they do know this. They are so much aware of this, and they're working towards coming up with a more robust framework for AI use. I hope I've touched a bit on both, but Fred, please add on.
Just quickly, I think we are very progressive in Kenya. We now have Kenya AI, what is it? Strategic plan or something, Henry?
Yeah, the AI strategy. Yeah.
The AI strategy, you link that to the digital superhighway, and you link that to the, all these things around new technology and data. So I think there's a lot happening, and this is a recognition of the opportunities as well as challenges that sit with any new technology. And like any institution or any country, we have to align with what's happening. So we have to develop guidelines, we have to develop policies, but more importantly, we have to operationalize these things. That's why, for example, in Kenya, we have the Office of the Data Protection. If you see back, it's all really about data, and data is what is used to train this application. So all these things are interconnected. There's a lot happening. There's a new areas where we're going to use these applications, including ethics review. I think I've seen steps towards that direction. Proposal review is now being done in most places like that. Very soon, admission to universities and maybe marking of exams will be done through AI. So we have to ensure that we move with the times, we develop guidelines that will help us go forward, and we don't fight AI.
Well, and with that, Fred, you just ended our discussion for today. I wish we had more time. There were plenty of questions around this topic, but I'm sure people can find you and Henry on LinkedIn to continue this conversation. But I thank you very much for your very valuable insight. It's been a great learning session for all of us. And in summary, AI is here to stay. We need to keep up, with what's happening in our fields, but also we need to exercise discretion as we use AI. I mean, it's been said, garbage in, garbage out, reputations are at stake, as Fred is saying here, for researchers.
Embrace the technology, champion the intellect.
In summary, embrace the technology and champion the intellect. Yes, and that covers all bases, including the threat of cognitive deficit. And I hope for our friends and participants from universities in Kenya that our professors, embrace the technology, as we move forward. Thank you very much, everyone. I've been your host for this conversation. My name is Maureen Konge, and you will be able to catch this conversation on our YouTube channel, where we'll be uploading this, including the slides. The slides will also be emailed to you, so don't worry about it. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Blue Sky, LinkedIn at APHRC. Thank you and goodbye.